most balanced offense in the league, number one in the league in third down. Where did that go? And by the way, their defense not very good, but oh my gosh, I just told everybody before the week before that, hey, look, this is one of the best teams that nobody's talking about. Maybe I was wrong.
Well, we certainly aren't going to talk about him this week. Meanwhile, RC, same question. What happened to the Rams?
When you watch the Rams, and they usually play against the San Francisco 49ers, it's a tough game for them. The 49ers run the football. The 49ers also rush forward and play well on the back end, especially when Richard Sherman is there. And that's what we saw yesterday. Jared Goff looked off. He didn't make some of the plays we've seen him make throughout the season. And Kyle Shanahan did a great job on that last drive, going on for it on 4th and 1, getting a better kick for Robbie Gould.
But then that brings us to Anthony Lynn's Chargers against Buffalo yesterday. Speaking of what the actual heck, quite a few moments. 46 seconds left in the first half. Chargers with the ball and 2 timeouts remaining. Herbert to Austin Eckler for a gain of 7. They face a 4th down decision. Eckler was down with 37 seconds left in the half. They let it tick down to 21 before finally calling a timeout. Then they called the timeout with 21 seconds left, and they would eventually punt the football after the timeout. So that just made no sense. Then it gets worse. 4th quarter, a minute to play, 4th and 27. Chargers have no timeouts, and they're down by 10. Herbert, scrambling, somehow stays alive, somehow flings this thing up, and Tyron Johnson winds up making an impossible catch for the first down. But again, the Chargers have no timeouts, so they got to race up there, and they've got to make something happen with 46 seconds left. They're running up there with 28 seconds to go. 1st and goal from the 2, and they run the football. They hand it to Austin Eckler, who gets tackled short of the end zone. Now we're going to speed up the video just to give you a sense. It's going to be 10 seconds left in the game by the time they're able to snap it again. Herbert throws an incomplete pass. There's a flag. It's roughing the passer, but who the heck cares? There's only 6 seconds left. So now there's 3 seconds left. Herbert is changing the play at the line of scrimmage. He's going to try his sneak. The offensive line lets the defense walk right in, but frankly, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because they didn't leave themselves enough time to have any chance to win it, which they probably wouldn't have anyway. But frankly, that was just horrendous. And Dan, you're shaking your head. I was watching it, screaming at the television. How do you look at what happened yesterday in that game?
I think yesterday is the final nail in the coffin for Anthony Lynn, and that job will be the most appealing job in the NFL next year because there's too many. We've had too many games like this. And all due respect to Anthony Lynn, I'm sure he's a great guy, and I love him as a coach. There's too many moments this year where at the end of the game, the coaching, the plan, the preparation has failed this football team, and it's led to them either blowing huge leads or not being able to get a snap off at the end of a football game. So this will be the best job available to any NFL team for looking for a head coach next year. Anthony Lynn and the mismanagement of the clock at the end of the first half, and then the mismanagement of the clock at the end of the game and the situation is the final nail in the coffin for him as their head coach. I'd expect them to move on. And with Justin Herbert looking like a potential MVP of this league, a superstar at that spot, that's going to be a job that would be coveted by every head coaching candidate.
I agree. It was difficult to watch. Every loss they had this season prior to that was a one-score game, a one-possession game, and frankly, this one should have been as well. Okay, moving on to the next order of business. Tonight, Monday Night Football, the Eagles and the Seahawks, and Jalen Hurts has been getting first-team reps at quarterback ahead of this game. Now, Carson Wentz is expected to start, but there's been a noticeable increase in Hurts' snaps with the first team in practice, signaling the likelihood of a more expansive role. Now, what does that mean? Carson Wentz has thrown just as many touchdowns as he has interceptions this season. That's bad. And has already committed the most turnovers in any year in his career. Plus, he's been sacked 40 times entering play tonight. So it's been a breakdown really in every conceivable way. The quarterback hasn't been the only problem, but clearly he's been part of the problem. So, RC, let me come to you. When you hear Jalen Hurts is getting more work in practice, what does that mean to you?
That they're in trouble. That Doug Peterson, who was once staunch in his support for Carson Wentz, understands that Carson Wentz isn't getting it done. But I think he also knows that Jalen Hurts isn't ready. And so if we are getting to the point to where Jalen Hurts is getting first-team snaps, this means that Doug Peterson is finally panicking. He finally understands that either I can't call the plays or I can't get the bubble around Carson Wentz good enough so he can play well. So I have to move on to something else that I probably don't believe in either. And this is a very bad sign for the Philadelphia Philadelphia Eagles, for their fans, for their teams, because he even said a couple of weeks ago, if you start thinking about moving to the next quarterback, you are signaling that the year is done. Is that the signal, Doug? Are you flashing the lights? Are you letting us know that you believe that Carson is done, that the season is done because now you move to Jalen Hurts getting first-team reps? This is a terrible message to send. This is a scary message to send. And this means that the Philadelphia Eagles are probably worse off than even we thought.
It's an excellent point, and I should remind everyone that they have no option to move on from Carson Wentz. For the next 2 seasons, financially, they are tied to him completely. So, Rex, when you hear the coaches giving the backup, what thought goes through your mind?
First off, I 100% agree with everything Ryan talked about there. But, guys, look, Jalen Hurts, we can say what we want. He doesn't have the NFL skill set. He really doesn't. And the fact that, I mean, you're showing me lack of confidence. And, look, guys, there's a fact. 3 years ago, Carson Wentz was the leading candidate to win the MVP before he got hurt. And how far he's regressed is absolutely amazing to me. So, I mean, it's just crazy. I can't believe it.
And, Dan, you made this point earlier, and I think it's worth repeating, that the Eagles, at this point, with Daniel Jones grabbing his hamstring and the thought being that that's a bad injury, they're the only team left in that division whose quarterback is still upright, which is remarkable when you consider now they're giving the other guy work, and they're the only ones whose quarterback is healthy. There's a lot of pressure on them right now, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that's why this is a no-brainer that Carson Wentz continues to be your starter. There's a ton of pressure on them. But I know everyone likes to go back to 2017, and listen, it happened, but that's a long time ago. Go back to last year. Go back to last year when Carson Wentz had done something that historically, at that position in the NFL, had never been done, to throw for that many yards without a 500-yard wide receiver. I mean, in many ways, Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz carried this football team that was as ravaged last year as they are this year into the playoffs. And I know their next 4 weeks are brutally tough with their schedule. But if they are going to pull off the miracle and do it again, it's going to be because of Carson Wentz. And I don't care where the disagreement is within your organization. If your owner, your general manager, head coach see it differently, get on the same page and support the quarterback the right way and prove to him that you believe him. Now, quarterback, you got to play well, and you got to kind of wear that or earn that. But the answer for the Eagles is not going to be Jalen Hurts, go run zone read for 65 plays and let's see if we can get our offense together. I think tonight, situational football, third and short, red zone is when we'll see Jalen Hurts.
Again, it's worth repeating that despite the 3-6-1 record you see on your screen, if they win tonight, they are alone in first place in the NFC East. They will play the Seahawks tonight, and you will see it. And we all know it's because of the tie. It's Carson Wentz, and it's Russell Wilson. It's the Eagles and the Seahawks. Coverage starts 6 Eastern with Monday Night Countdown, followed by football at 8 Eastern. It's on ESPN, and, of course, you can watch, as always, on the ESPN app. Well, let's wrap it up where we began it today with the game of the day with so many implications. Patrick Mahomes just flat out brilliant yesterday. Tyreek Hill had an extraordinary season in one game yesterday in Tampa. And in the end, they were able to hold off a late rally from Tom Brady and the Buccaneers and get a very entertaining win, 27-24. So final thoughts. RC, we've been back and forth on this game in so many different ways. What is your number one final thought coming out of this game yesterday?
That Patrick Mahomes is that dude. That Patrick Mahomes is that difference maker. When you watch any game, when he understands the gravity of the situation, when he knows that he has to step up, we've never had to look for him. There's never been an excuse made for Patrick Mahomes as to why he didn't show up in the huge moments, in the critical pieces or critical parts of football games. And we saw that yesterday. It was a virtuoso performance from the start to the finish. He started out explosively and he finished the game intelligently. And there aren't many quarterbacks in the league that can do that. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy understand what they have at the quarterback position, and they call the game accordingly. And yesterday was a prime example of that.
Dan, final thought, Bucs Chiefs.
I think the Buccaneers are in trouble per what the expectations are for